It's Christmas.
Christmas, that's why we've got the traditional Christmas hat and scarf and TARDIS blanket.
I got this hat at the pound shop a few years ago. I only really wear it on Christmas Eve when I work.
And
it was like sitting over there and she put it on my head and I was like, I'm already warm. I'm too hot. I don't
need a costume to make people entertained.
It's Christmas. My supervisor at work is always like, I'm going to release my dubstep Christmas album. Get that off your head. It's not cool. It's not a fez. Fez is not cool.
Okay, so you might have heard of the film The Foreigner. Obviously, you've heard of it now because you clicked on the video, but it never got a Northern Irish release. We were looking forward to seeing it.
I wonder why.
We were like, oh, I want to see Jackie Chan punch the Troubles in the face, but we never got to see it. So, like 2 days ago, you mentioned it was on Netflix.
Yeah, I saw it was on Netflix UK, and I was like, hey, we should watch that.
I was like, yeah, Omega's not working on Christmas for once, so let's watch it on Netflix.
What do you mean for once? We're always closed on Christmas.
No, I mean, you're always working, and we don't have time to watch things in the Backseat Critiques. You
but
know, have you noticed I do less Backseat Critiques whenever I'm with you than when I'm with Robin, because Robin's just like, I gotta be up in 2 hours, I'll come and do Backseat Critique.
Why didn't you marry Robin the Mindy then? Well, because he's married to someone else?
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yes. This is really, really fucking awesome.
Here's the thing, is I was talking with one of my supervisors in the lift about, I was like, oh, we're gonna probably watch it this weekend. And she's like, oh, yeah, I really like Pierce Brosnan. And the guy, I think she's with Semicam on the second floor, he's like, oh, your man's accent's really bad, so it is. In a Derry accent. And then I was like, oh, really? He's like, oh, well, he's English. I was like, no, Pierce Brosnan's Irish. No, he's posh English. He's English. And then my supervisor, who, like, we name drop a lot, my supervisor Garvin, who watches a lot of films, and whose refrain usually is, have you ever seen it? No, Wales, I've seen it. He was like, no, Pierce Brosnan is not, he's Irish, he's from this such and such town. I was like, well, you're
he's from a small town down south somewhere.
Alright.
But Pierce Brosnan does a far better Northern Irish accent than Colm Meaney managed as Martin McGuinness in that film about McGuinness and Paisley. The guy playing Paisley, Timothy Spall, who is English, did a far better Northern Irish accent than Colm Meaney did. But, you know, Colm Meaney looks just like Martin McGuinness, so yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. But here's the thing, though, like, I'm very annoyed because it was Belfast this and Belfast that, and they only mentioned Derry one time, and it was Tangential. They mentioned the Bogside. Yeah. I was like,
I'm not butcher of the Bogside.
I'm like, oh, he's from Derry then. But yeah, not good way to actually mention the town.
Yeah, Pierce Brosnan boastingly says that he used to be the butcher of the Bogside. It's like, Pierce, I don't know who wrote the script, but the Bogside is a Catholic nationalist area. If anyone's going to be the butcher of the Bogside, that insinuates that you went in there and you killed people in the Bogside. They're your side.
I thought like that meant he was the butcher from the Bogside.
It's probably a mention. It's a reference probably to the Shankill butchers, who were a real group.
Oh.
But yeah, that one struck me as a bit. You just name dropped a place there, movie. Your context was slightly off.
There's an old person's home in the Bogside, right on the William Street.
I really enjoyed this being a Northern Islander myself.
Everyone was like, "Nar."
Yeah.
Nar.
You had no idea who you're dealing with.
I'll get you, Nar.
Hi.
No one said hi though. That's a Derry thing.
Yeah. It's also a Ballymena thing.
And catch yourself on. No one says that.
Yeah.
I was waiting for that.
Oh, get the Waynes out there.
But like my coworker, she says, "Why is that?"
Oh, let them saunter on.
No, but it was really weird because it was really weird to see like Jackie Chan as, you know, this character who obviously from the trailer, his daughter is killed in a bombing.
His daughter who dated Harry Potter.
Mm-hmm.
Because she was the...
She played What's Her Face?
In like episode 5 of Harry Potter, she went to a dance with him.
But, yeah, so she's killed very early on, and he's desperate to get the names of the bombers so he can exact revenge, because he's former U.S. Special Forces in Vietnam and all this other stuff. But, so, it's really weird because he portrays himself as this old, like, downtrodden, you know, everyone keeps calling him, like, Chinese, but his name looks like...
In the book, he's Vietnamese, but everyone thinks he's Chinese. I think they changed him so he's actually Chinese in this because Jackie Chan's playing the part.
Yeah. But it's really weird. It's because he's like, everyone's like, oh, that old Chinaman, but you're like, and they call him the Chinaman in the movie.
Because the book's called The Chinaman.
So we weren't being racist, that's just, we're quoting the movie. But then, like, we know...
Yeah, the word Chinaman is not actually a common term in the UK. The film seems to think that it's...
Everyone says that?
Yeah.
I've never heard anyone say that.
If it's used, it's generally in a racist context. Yeah. It's like, okay.
But, like, we know in secret that he's really Jackie Chan.
Yeah.
So he's like, oh, well, I just go on my innocent, unoffensive way. Like, but you're Jackie Chan. You're going to beat the shit out of somebody soon.
Yeah, and it was really entertaining. You know, it was just wonderful roller coaster seeing how Jackie Chan is going to MacGyver and fist his way into, you know, all kinds of vengeance.
Yeah.
I almost wish it would have been even better if they'd got someone who actually was an inoffensive elderly Asian person to play the part, so you would be shocked.
Sort but Jackie Chan's pretty old now. And
he is, but he's also Jackie Chan.
Doesn't do his own stunts anymore. He's so tired.
But we know he's Jackie Chan, so we have that context.
That preconceived notion.
It's like Liam Neeson was very far from an action person until Taken. It was like how Leslie Nielsen was a straight actor, a completely serious dramatic actor until Airplane.
Airplane.
So what they should have got was someone who you wouldn't expect to play the lead in this. Like, I'm thinking just off the top of my head, George Takei or James Hong.
George Takei is far too old.
Or Burt.
You'd have to have like a
James
stunt
Hong's
guy.
like 90.
Well, you'd have to have a stunt person.
Or
That
Burt
would look weird.
Klock. That's what I think. Get someone who's completely unexpected. It's like, holy fuck!
That would be so difficult to film.
Yes, incredibly.
Basically, so Pierce Brosnan is playing not Jerry Adams.
Yes.
But he's so not Jerry Adams that actual Jerry Adams tweeted, like, after the trailer hit, my goodness, but isn't Pierce Brosnan attractive these days? Which is fantastic.
I would love to be in a room with Jerry Adams when he's watching this film.
Oh, come play that Pierce Brosnan!
That would be so funny.
But, like, the thing is that it's really, really bad because they're like, oh, you forgot we're fighting for United Ireland. And I was like, I'm sure you could have just waited until Brexit goes to shit and then you'll get your way anyway, but...
Yeah.
And, like, it was just really funny because, like, if you don't understand the politics of Northern Ireland, which I do not at all, so that it was an experience for me, you do kind of understand the politics.
I understand it way better than you because... You know, I don't sound it, but I was born and raised in Northern Ireland.
Nobody in our town believes you. They're like, oh, what state are you visiting from? And you're like, the Waterside.
Yeah, they all think I'm American.
Ta-da. But yeah, so I kept making my topical British jokes. Like...
It was really interesting. Okay.
Like, First Minister, this has to be dealt with right away. Well, where's his offices? It's not in Stormont, but... shh. Because there's been no government in Northern Ireland for almost a year now?
Yeah, almost a year.
Almost a year. It's just something that happens over here. That's what we do.
But, okay, generally, having looked at the Troubles on film a lot of times in different films, generally you've got the IRA or the Republicans Nationalists. They're generally depicted as...
I'm just even if this apart, by the way.
I cannot think of a movie where there's... Except for this, where there's no degree of sympathy in their cause. Even if it's a film where they're normally the villains, like Patriot Games, there's always there's an undercurrent, a slight undercurrent of the cause, what they're fighting for is decent, the methods are bad. And in the same sort of thing, you've got the British are almost always either villains or they're just pissed off about being involved, and then the loyalists, the unionists, the Protestants, generally they're almost always in film depicted as just straight out villains. In fact, there's at least one film, Resurrection Man, where it's just like, they're basically using one guy and his team are using the Troubles.
He should have beat the shit out of Arlene Foster. That would have been fantastic.
The Resurrection Man is just the epitome of that depiction of loyalists. But in this one, you've basically got... I can't think of much sympathy the film has for the IRA position, which is unusual in film, which I found, to be honest, I found a little bit refreshing and very amusing. And the British in this, they're sort of hybriding the villain and the pissed off with this shit. So
yeah, but see, the thing is, like, you don't really know that they're as villainous as they are until the end.
Yeah.
You're like, I think I actually said that loud. Oh shit, ain't nobody not an asshole in this one.
Yeah, so it's like, it is very nice for a film to come in there and get the nuance of the Troubles in the way that the Troubles, pretty much everyone involved in the Troubles in any violent capacity was an asshole. It just depends on what degree, and that all depends on your POV, compared to the whole thing, because it's a huge clusterfuck. And this one's just got everyone's an asshole, everyone gets killed, and I'm like...
Except the woman who owns Jackie Chan's character's, she's an employee of his Chinese restaurant, and then, like, when he goes away at the beginning to exact her vengeance, he leaves the deed and says, "This is your restaurant now." And it's obvious she's, like, is in love with him, and I was like, kiss her, you fool. and he doesn't. But then, like, he comes back at the end, and she's like, just there. Where she's like, "Oh, you're back! Oh my god, that's so great!" I'm like, she's the only not asshole. Her and his daughter.
I want to see more films like this about the Troubles. Just use
morally ambiguous.
Use the Troubles as an excuse for a badass action film, because we are moving far enough away from it for it sort of to be less real, so that you can mine it for pure entertainment.
For you though, but here's the thing: your perspective is not everyone in this town's perspective.
That's true.
Like, I volunteer for victim support in Northern Ireland, and there are a lot, like, if anyone's a victim of a crime, they can come in and talk with us. We can help them get counseling, even if they just need to talk to somebody. We can help them with a whole bunch of different stuff. You know, that's what we're there for, just to listen, to help when we can, you know. But there are so many people that come in as a victim of, like, a random crime or domestic abuse or something like that, that there is still stuff that's entwined with that.
Well, yeah. It's going to be like that for generations upon generations.
Like, I mean, I know that you have a very different outlook just because of where you grew up in the town, but, like, I don't know. I think that everyone's perspective is going to be different.
Well, yeah.
Like, one of the...
Well, I'm hardly giving anyone else's perspective.
I know, it's just, like... But, you know, there might be people that don't agree with you. Like,
that's fine. They
one of the volunteers that I work with, like, she's always would be like, oh, well, that was, like, the time, well, you know, we always had to get evacuated, and we had to, you know, go sit outside, you know, Pennyburn, like, up there's that church up there.
Yeah, I recall
stuff. And, oh, I remember, because the British troops came by, and they ate a dog, and I wanted to pet it, and I was like...
I remember...
And she's just telling me the stuff, like, you know, as you know, and I'm like...
I got stories like that. I remember being evacuated. I remember, you know, seeing the soldiers and stuff. I remember, you know, there was the patrols, like, you know, guys with guns. I remember bombs going off, seeing the city in flames. Whenever the only times you ever saw the city was on the news was whenever parts were on fire. It's like you would go around, you know, into the town. There was barricades everywhere, but you would go in, and different buildings occasionally were missing. It's. I remember I grew up. It was the tail end of it, but I grew up with all of that. And I think that's really shaped my my attitude to terrorism. I have a very blasé one because, you know, got through it. But you're entirely right. I did not get a personal one-on-one involved in it. I didn't lose anyone. I was not involved. You know, I wasn't nearly killed by something. My dad was almost killed one time, but that was either when I was a baby or before I was born, I'm not sure. But so you're absolutely right. Someone who's got I got a certain...
more distance.
More distance than the people you're talking about, but I'm a lot closer than a lot of other ones. So I sort of I got a closeness and a distance to be completely... to have a unique perspective on it that's, you know...
I'm just saying, don't be like, oh, it's grand, sure, because I'm... Well, I don't know.
They don't need to...
The PTSD rates in Northern Ireland, according to the World Health Organization, because one of my professors, who's her thing is suicide and PTSD, she's part of the World Health Organization study, like, it's, like, higher than Beirut. Yeah. Like, it's, like, really bad, so... Anyway, continue on with your analysis.
I just
Psychology time over.
This was really entertaining. You don't often get to see Troubles films that are this amusing.
Or set in the like.
Because they're usually period pieces, and therefore they're a bit more real. Well, this is because obviously nothing like bombings is happening right now, so it's you got that disconnect. So if the political thing changes, which it may well because of Brexit, this will become a lot less funny.
Yeah. Well, do you know Envy? You know how they? Well, you don't know this.
But it was a bit like Deadliest Warrior. You were seeing the IRA take on the Viet Cong, because
that's true. There's an episode of Deadliest Warrior where it's IRA versus the Viet Cong.
Actually, no, it was IRA versus Al Qaeda.
Oh.
And no, I don't care what anyone says. I love Deadliest Warrior. It was so amusing.
Yeah, but then sometimes the wins were really cheap. Like the computer figured this out. Like that would never happen. But yeah, no, it was really good. I mean, it was well acted. Everybody shouted a lot, and that was great. London was completely unrealistic because there were a lot less people than there actually were. And
yeah.
I wondered. I said, like, because of all the the terrorist stuff that does keep happening in England and in large English cities like London and Manchester. I wondered if I said, "Did this come out in America?" And she was like, "Well, what do you mean?" I was like, "Well, would it be weird for Americans because apparently we think that the only terrorism in the world is Islamic terrorism?
Well, there's a
like
lot...
completely losing the entire context of like the IRA's history.
See, with them, that's at least slightly understandable, even though they're stupid for not realizing about, right-wing Christian terrorism in the USA. But there's British people who claim that Muslims are the only terrorists who have either forgotten what the fuck was going on in their own country 20 years ago. I mean, it's never forgotten here, but, in London, in England... Till fairly recently, there were bombs going off in London. They tried to kill Thatcher. They blew up the Tory party conference, the equivalent of blowing up the Republican National Convention. That's the equivalent. And they tried to wipe out her entire cabinet. They failed. Thatcher survived, but that shit did happen. And yet there's a lot of people who seem to have retconned their memories just to vilify brown people.
Yeah,
which is horrible.
We flew to Edinburgh, us two and my mother and father-in-law, to meet my parents because we were having like a whole big family holiday. And there was a police podium, and my father-in-law says, that's where you used to have to stop, and all the flights to Northern Ireland had to go through and be interviewed personally. And I was like, seriously? That's racial profiling. And he's like, that's the way it was.
How's the racial profiling? Any race going from Northern Ireland?
Yeah, I know, but I didn't really know what else to say. You know what I mean? It's profiling.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's I don't know how much details you have about the Troubles, but this film won't really help you with
Read the
getting
wiki.
those details, but... Very complicated, very dark, very few heroes, lots of villains, lots of things blew up.
So this was pretty true to life then.
Yeah. Obviously through a Martin Campbell, GoldenEye, Casino Royale type, action film. I'm officially forgiving him for Green Lantern because this amused me so much.
It was well acted, but there wasn't enough rain.
Yeah.
For it to be actually Ireland, because it's Christmas Day and it's just been pissing down most of the day.
Yeah. And it was genuinely surreal to see Jackie Chan in Belfast.
I know, right?
It's just like, these are two parts of the world that you don't expect to mix, yet they are.
Jackie Chan in front of the Europa.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I mean, if it's on Netflix US, or you're in the US, or if you're in the UK, just give it a watch, It's the worst ways to spend your time.
2 hours.
What do you do? Watch Bright? Actually, I do kind of want to see it.
You get 2 hours of thrilling action and people going boom, and Jackie Chan's basically like a non-murderous version of the Punisher. It's awesome.
Yeah, he doesn't really kill anyone, does he?
Till the very end.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, he's like, oh, you are magnificent, sir.
But yeah, so I mean... It's got
of course, the real life part, the real life implications of what happens in this film. You've got a sizable chunk of the IRA have been at the end of the film have been killed, or they've lost their power. They've been broken. Basically, their big council, like half of them, it's been basically they're in a lot more precarious place than they were before. Of course, knowing Northern and like the boss is basically forced to work for the British, so they got a big mole at the very top, which means that would have incredibly interesting and probably disastrous implications for actually what would happen in Northern Ireland, because, Northern Ireland, the Troubles are not a story of the IRA versus the British. There is a lot of different groups, and there's all, apart from just those two, there's the Loyalists, who...
Well, I mentioned the UVF once. But...
Yeah, but they didn't give any context for this. But at the end of this film, you may well have a situation where it's like the IRA are basically castrated, but the Loyalists are like, yo, we're running around doing stuff you do. I want to see a foreigner too. I don't care what's going on. Jackie Chan's cousin gets blown up by someone in Afghanistan, and he goes off and murders, I don't know.
Everyone in Al-Qaeda?
Yes. Or ISIS.
Or the Taliban. Yeah, the Taliban.
Oh no! So he's visiting the United States and he gets killed by someone who's a stand-in for Richard Spencer, and
he kills the alt-right. That'd be
that was
great.
so good.
It'd be fantastic. Well, this was a co-production between Chinese companies and British companies. I said, there can't be any American involvement, and she said, why? I said, because if you look around London, there's people of color. As far as Americans is concerned, London is completely white. True. And
they went to Greenwich. They had this big meeting, and she was like, "Isn't that Greenwich?" And
we went there because we went there like a few weeks ago.
Yeah, we were there, and so that's where Thor saved the world in Thor: The Dark World, that amazing cinematic opus. So I really, after I manage to get a hold of a copy of this film properly, like, you know, not on Netflix, I might see if it's possible to edit the end of Thor: The Dark World in with that conversation, just to make it look like they're happening at the same time, because that would be hilarious.
But yeah, so he gets our seal of approval. He could do worse. On your Yuletide festival. Can I take this hat off now?
No.
Oh, Jesus. So that's us.
Turn it off.
Merry Christmas. I can't. You have the long reach.